Tonight we're going to bring you a special interest story, and not only a special interest story, we're going to bring you a special person for this area. He's a well-known writer, educator, and there's many, many more titles we can put to him. We're going to bring you an interview with Ed Smith, and we're today in Mr. Smith's house. I'll call him Ed because calling him Mr. Smith, a lot of people out there don't know him by that. But we'd like to welcome Mr. Smith to our show. Ed, thanks for giving us the opportunity to come in.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Now, you mentioned that CBC has been here to do an interview with you, and they had a little bit of trouble, but we're not as professional as CBC, and hopefully we never become that professional, because then the fun will go out. What do you think?
Oh, it depends what you want to have fun with, I guess.
Well, this actually to us is fun, but you have a lot of fun writing books, and you've been doing that over the years. I guess it became a hobby of yours and then came to a type of a job.
Yeah, I've been writing since I was a boy because I was so bored in school, writing essays and that sort of thing and entering contests. But I started writing, I guess, professionally, if you want to call it that, maybe 15 years ago, when I started writing for what was then, I think, the Green Bay News. I don't think it was the Nor'Wester then. But I was writing a column for them, and I was doing it for nothing. You know, it was just fun to do it every week. And then I got a call from the editor of another paper asking me how much I charged for my column. And this light went on over my head. They pay people for doing this. So I came up with a figure that I thought was terribly high, and he said, fine. If you'll write for us for that, that'll be great. So I said, fine, good enough. I went back to the editor of the paper here, who's not the same editor, by the way, and said, they're paying me this much over in this other paper, so I think it's only fair that I charge you people too. And he thought about that and said, okay, you're fired. And that was the end of that. And I didn't write for the paper here then for another year until another editor came on stream and asked me to write for them again, which I've been doing ever since.
But now that would be a common thing, I guess. You were just probably doing it to start just as a favor for the editor was there, but actually people do that for a living, either enter pictures or write stories.
Actually, I wasn't doing it for anybody except me. I was doing it just for the fun of doing it, and just something to distract me from work and everything else.
Now, Ed, you must have got a lot of joy out of writing, because you write some really good stories for the people who read them. For the people who don't read them, they should start, because there is a lot of fun and humor in your stories.
Well, I hope so. That's what I get paid to do anyway, by the editors in the papers I write in. I'm paid to give people a laugh and a chuckle or a smile or whatever. Sometimes I don't do that, of course. Sometimes I get them very, very upset. Matter of fact, I got a phone call yesterday from the editor of one of the papers I'm in, who said he had a letter from a person, I won't say where, in Newfoundland, who said that never, I forget how many nevers there were, would he again buy a copy of that paper as long as I was in it. So I don't make everybody laugh, you know.
But now, Ed, all these stories that you write, are they from personal experiences or just what you think up of an idea to put in the paper?
Well, it depends. Everything you write, I guess, has to do with your personal experience, because that's the perspective you write from. Sometimes they're experiences that I have, or my family has, or people I know, and sometimes they're things that come just out of my head because I want to write on that particular subject any given time.
Now, you were doing this as a, well, hard to really say as a normal person, but you were a upstanding, walking person. Then all of a sudden a tragedy happened in your life, and how has this tragedy changed your life compared to what you were before the tragedy hit you?
Well, I'm no longer an upstanding person, I can tell you that. How has it affected my life? It's affected my life every way. As a matter of fact, that day on the road, I lost my life. I wasn't killed, but I lost my life. Everything in it about me changed. Everything that about my wife changed, and the rest of my family even. Very little is the same as it was then. I guess unless you're in it, you have no idea how to describe it even to somebody else, because until I had no idea of what it meant to have no legs, no hands, just what they call gross motor movement of your arms, and no feeling below here. So it's very hard to explain how that is. One of the difficult things about it is the way people treat you. People treat me like I'm abnormal, you know. They tend to pat me on the head. Oh, isn't it nice to see you out now? You know, and that sort of thing. They even tend to pat me on the head literally. You know, people do that, which drives me around the bend. But I'm essentially, I guess, the same person I always was. But people don't treat you that way. It's like my mother, who's 83 years old. She says, I'm the same person I was when I was 23. I don't feel any different, I don't think any different, but people insist on treating me like I was 83 years old. And that's like me. People insist on treating me like I'm crippled and not just handicapped, which means having a disadvantage. But it does, it changes your whole life completely. You have to live with that.
Now, we attended a seminar that was given here by the Supported Handicapped and Wheelchair Accessibility crowd. And at that seminar, you mentioned that you noticed throughout your life since you got in a wheelchair that a lot of the things is not really what they seem to be. Tell the people a little bit about, especially when you go to some of the stores, the accessibility to the stores.
Accessibility, that's being able to get into a place and out of it, is one of the major problems people in wheelchairs face. Because two things. A lot of people are very well intentioned. Here in Springdale, I know there's several businesses and other places trying to put in ramps and that sort of thing for people who do have a problem. But too often they don't ask people like me, will this work? Can you get in here? Can you operate the elevator down at the hospital or anywhere else? And quite often the answer is no, I can't, because they never come to ask. Now, using the hospital as an example, I should point out that they have asked me. Had Marion and me down and can you reach this, can you reach that, what'll happen if we put the buttons here and all that sort of thing. So that's great. And more people should do that sort of thing when they are trying to make life accessible for us. But it's a really big problem. There's only, I don't even know if there's one, there might be one place in town that's totally accessible. That is a place I can get into without help. And that's what accessible means. A place I can get into without somebody else coming with me or waiting until somebody else opens a door to get me in or that sort of thing. But there's, as I say, there's a lot of good intent around. On one of those days we'll get it all straight, I'm sure.
Now, I guess one of the major concerns would be washroom areas. How do you find that the washrooms in some of these facilities are designed for the handicapped people?
I've never been in a washroom in one of those facilities, but I assume the same problem would exist. I've never had to use one around any of those places.
Now, when you were back before your accident, you did a lot of speaking engagements and dinners and stuff. Do you still get that same type of calls now for that thing?
It's picking up. Until November of this past year, I didn't have any transportation, so I couldn't go anywhere, and I guess a lot of people knew that because I mentioned it in columns and that. But now in the new year, yeah, I'm getting a fair amount of it. As a matter of fact, I'm over in Kings Point on Saturday night coming, I think, to speak to an appreciation dinner for teachers. So, and I have several coming up, some as far away as next fall, late next fall. So that's starting in again, and that's great because I enjoy doing that. The only thing is, there has to be in a place where I can get in and get out of.
I guess when you make those arrangements now, you make sure that people are aware that you need all these accessibility special deals so you can get in?
Yeah. One of the first questions, can I get into where you're going to have this and can I get out? Because I do want to get out again.
No, we heard at that seminar that we attended that a person went into an area purposely to see if they were accessible. Do you do that sometimes when you go to different stores, just to go and see if they are accessible, even though they say they're wheelchair accessible?
I have a look at them. My wife does a fair amount of that too, because she gets around more than I do at the moment. And we look at it, and if, As a matter of fact, there was one place that had a sign on it, accessible according to CPA standards. CPA is Canadian Paraplegic Association. And it wasn't. And we complained to the CPA, and they came out and took a sign out of it because it just wasn't true. And it's very misleading to people who go there expecting to get in. Not as much have I done as I'm going to do. As soon as the weather gets good and I can get out around, I'm going to be looking at a whole lot of those places. Not because I want to torment people or anything, but because there are a whole lot of people like me. Not just people who are paralyzed, but people who are older and in wheelchairs, and for one reason or another, who want to get in and out of those places, and it's only fair that they should. So maybe I can be a bit of a voice for people like that.
You know, speaking of a voice, there's a lot of children that goes to our schools that is in wheelchairs and got different types of handicaps. I guess maybe you will become a role model for them because they look up to Mr. Ed Smith. He's a writer, and he's probably somebody that people will listen to. Do you think all of our schools are really accessible to these children?
I doubt it very much. The schools that I knew about when I was active in them certainly weren't accessible. Some of them have made an effort to be. There are others who are naturally because they were built that way. But when I was principal of the college campus in here, I went around telling everybody that that was an accessible building. I wasn't in a wheelchair then, of course, and I thought it was until we had a meeting there one day that involved a man in a wheelchair, and he couldn't get in the building. And suddenly I realized, my gosh, this is not accessible. But unless you're sitting in this, or you're very close to somebody who is, you just don't know that. You look at it and say, yeah, you can get in there okay.
You know, at that seminar also you mentioned that a 4-inch wall around somebody in a wheelchair is as bad as a 8-foot wall. What exactly did you mean by that? Because a wheelchair sometimes you would think might be able to pop over a 4-inch wall, but what did you mean by it?
It's very difficult for a wheelchair to pop over a 4-inch wall. That's a standard joke that goes around amongst people in wheelchairs. I can't get over a 4-inch wall in this thing. And this is a high-powered, high-tech chair, supposed to be able to do anything. But I could never, not without help, get up over a 4-inch wall, and probably hardly with help, because the chair weighs about 350 pounds. I'm another 200, so that's quite a weight. And people just can't lift it up. So unless you're athletic and young, and you've got full use of both your arms, you manage to do it then perhaps. But certainly if you're a quadriplegic like me, you haven't got a prayer in the world.
Now, what are some of the changes you had to make to your house? Because I guess there had to be a lot of changes made to your house to facilitate you when you came back in a wheelchair.
Yeah, a lot of changes that cost a lot of money. Thanks to the very, very generous people in this area and all over Newfoundland, I was able to do this. And that's something I want to mention in case I forget it. We had literally thousands of cards and letters and all kinds of expressions of support from people around here and from all over the province, as a matter of fact from all parts of Canada and even in the US, who were just so very supportive and usually started out saying, I don't know you, Mr. Smith, but. And it was just a beautiful thing and with so much support. And I don't think people have any idea how much that means when you're in a position like that and you have to try to get on with your life to know that people are thinking about you. It was a marvelous thing.
Now, getting back to the changes, I guess you had to widen out your doors and you had to do different things. What was some of them?
Yeah. First of all, we had to put down all hardwood floors because carpets just don't stand up to this kind of treatment when you're wheeling over it. The hardwood is much, much easier to wheel over. And as a matter of fact, your carpet would wear out in a few months and you had to replace it again. So all that had to be done. We had to build on a piece to the house because there just wasn't room enough to have wide enough halls. The bedroom has to be fairly large so I can wander around in it and get around quite well. All the facilities had to be big enough that I can turn around, which requires about a 5-foot space, turning space. So that had to be done. And as you say, doors widened. I had to have exits in various places that I wouldn't normally have them, because getting out of this place in a hurry, if you had to get out, has to be possible. We had a nice big deck built on because I can get out there in the summer and wheel around. One of my hobbies is gardening. I can't get out in the garden anymore, but I can plant things in boxes out around the rail out there, and I can grow anything you want to grow. And over there, you notice are my tomato plants and everything else for the spring to get them out in the garden.
I noticed when I come in, I wondered if you were going to start a greenhouse, but I guess that's your actual greenhouse here in your room.
This is it, but one of those days there just may be a greenhouse on the end of her there. But in the meantime, these are some of Marion's flowers and some of my vegetables getting ready for the spring.
Now, did you continue your writing now that you're back and able to do some things? Are you still writing your stories in your book?
My column is in the paper every week. Matter of fact, it's in a half dozen papers every week. And I'm writing a book on my 18 months in rehab centers in Newfoundland and Toronto. And hopefully that'll be funny. A lot of it wasn't funny, especially the first part of it. And hopefully it will touch some people and perhaps even encourage some people to just keep on going when you think there's not a chance in the world you can go another foot.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you had very little use of your hands in that, but how do you continue to write?
I have a voice-activated computer over there, and that allows me to sit in front of it and simply speak into the mic, and what I speak into the mic comes out on the screen, and then all I have to do is print it off. So that helps me, well, it makes it possible for me to continue writing, because otherwise these hands couldn't do it.
Now, I guess there had to be some changes made also to things for you. Do you help yourself feeding and that type of thing? Does somebody feed you now, or do you do it yourself?
No, I do that myself. I have a special cuff that fits onto my hand, and the fork and knife and everything, spoon goes in that, and I feed myself quite well. So I have no problem that way at all. Just what are they called? There's some name that I forget right now that goes on tools and utensils and so on of that type that enable a person with very poor or no hand movement to take care of himself.
Now, when people get in an accident and they got to go to either a wheelchair or be bedridden, it takes a long time to adjust to that type of thing. Is that something that everybody goes through, or just certain people?
One of the great things about being in Toronto, the treatments, the rehabs there were no better than they are in Newfoundland. But one of the great things about being there was I was in a hospital where there were 69 or 70 other people exactly like me in that they all had spinal cord injuries and were in wheelchairs. Some of them were older, some of them were younger, some of them were worse off than me, some of them were better off than me, but we all had this very common approach that it was extremely difficult to live with, and everybody finds that. Now, people have different means of coping with it. Some people deny it. Some people, like Christopher Reeve, whom I'm sure everybody has seen on TV and that, say, I'm going to walk again. That's it, I'm going to walk in 5 years or whatever. So they cope with it that way. Most of us know we're not going to walk again, at least from my age. Maybe younger people in their teens, early 20s, they may have a chance to do it. Others cope by jumping off high bridges, unfortunately, and there's some who do that. There are others who just try to pick up their lives and live day to day as normally as you can and try to swallow hard. You get up every morning, it's there facing you. You can't go through life crying about it. You've got to live with other people, your family. You can't make life miserable for them. So what are you going to do? What you do is you just make the best that you can of it and live each day one day at a time. I know everybody says that, but it is really that. You can't look down the road and say, am I going to be alive in 5 years? Am I going to be alive in 10? We don't know. But that's part of the problem. And there are people who have a lot worse problems than this. I don't have to look very far around me at all to see people with whom I wouldn't change places for anything in this world.
Now, for some of the younger people out there that might be watching this, and knowing that you're a man a little bit older and probably a little bit wiser, and probably you've had a little bit easier time getting over the things than a younger person, say 8 or 9 years old, what would you say to the younger person that's having trouble?
Same as I'd say to you if you were having trouble, or to anybody my age who's having trouble. You've got to stick with it. You've got to keep on fighting every day of your life. You've got to never give up, because when you give up, the battle is over and you've lost it. I don't think it's any easier for somebody who's 9 or somebody who's 90. We used to talk about that an awful lot in our meetings in Toronto. Is it easier for young people to get used to this or older people? And we could never come to any conclusion. The younger people thought it was easier for them. We thought it was easier for us. We never reached any conclusion. It's just blessed difficult for anybody who suffers this kind of catastrophic injury in their lives.
Now, also, people sometimes say that we're not really handicapped. The society around us make us handicapped. How do you feel about that quote?
There's some truth in it. It's not totally true. I am handicapped. I can't do the things you do. I can't do the things 95% of the population can do. So that makes me handicapped. But the definition of the word handicapped is to be placed at a disadvantage. And that's what I am. I'm placed at a disadvantage. Like a handicap in golf. Somebody's real good in golf, he has a handicap if he's playing with somebody who's not nearly as good at it. And that's what I have. I can't walk, but I can wheel. I can't move, but I can think. I can't go out in the woods and hunt rabbits like I used to. That's why there's so many rabbits, as I said before now. But I can still talk. So you put the emphasis in your life on the positive things, and you try not to deal too much with the negative. Society makes us handicapped by not making enough allowance for us, by not making things as accessible for us. But on the other hand, we don't want to be treated specially, other than in those areas where we need help, like usually mobility.
Now, getting back to your writing, has it changed now since you were stricken to a wheelchair? A little probably more towards the serious side and the funny side that you spent at most of the time when you were up and walking around and you could kid around a lot more?
I don't know. I've asked several people this. Do they see a change in my writing? Some people have said yes, they can see a little bit more seriousness there. I try not to let this be influence what I write, unless I want to make fun of it. I try hard not to let it be different, but to what extent I'm successful at that, you'd have to ask somebody who reads it. I'm not sure, and I get different opinions.
So if there's somebody out there that wanted to drop by and visit you, that's not regularly a visitor of yours, would just like come in and chat with you and probably get a little bit of uplifting from some of the stories you tell, would you be interested in people dropping in to see you?
I don't turn away anybody from my door, but there are days, I can tell you, I'm not too uplifting. I mean, we all have bad days, and I guess someone in a wheelchair has more than their share. Sometimes I could uplift the Pope, but there are other days when I just assumed I didn't talk to anybody. It's just the way it is. In a hospital, I used to say, come in tomorrow and have a chat if I'm not feeling really good today. But anybody, especially somebody who's got a physical problem and is trying hard to deal with it and having a lot of problem dealing with it, whether it's 12 o'clock at day or 12 o'clock at night, I'd be happy to sit down with them either where they are or here or wherever, because that's one of the few things I can do, is help people deal with these kinds of things in their lives. Blindness, paralysis, disease, whatever. If I can help, I'd be glad to.
Now, with your writing and the things that you've been involved in over the years, how have you seen some of the people change towards you actually since now you're in a wheelchair? Are you getting the same type of comments from people that you're the same person, or have you seen that people was treating you a little different?
The other night down at a meeting down at church, a friend of mine has a bad arm. So I was asking her how her arm was, and she said, not very good. And I said, that's okay, my dear, I got a bad foot, which I do. Usually I got it wrapped up in something. And she said, okay. She said, you give me your foot and you can have my arm. And I said, okay, that's fine. You can have my foot because I wasn't planning on doing anything with it anyway. And she said, oh my Lord, what have I said? And I said, nothing. You haven't said anything. Don't be foolish. It was just fun. But people are very self-conscious about what they say to me because they don't want to hurt my feelings, naturally, and they don't want to insult me, naturally. What they don't know is that I don't get offended at stuff like that. I know I'm paralyzed. I know I can't walk. I know I can't do much with those hands anymore. And that's fine. The best way to endure this stuff is to laugh at it. So people shouldn't worry about how they talk to me or how I react. There have been people who've said, boy, I really would like to come over and see you, but I don't know what to say when I get there. And I said, don't be so foolish. From here up, I'm the same person I always was. That's probably the best part of me all the time anyway. So don't worry about it. But a lot of people do worry about it. Don't. And that's not just true for me. That's true for anybody who has a disability of any kind. For heaven's sakes, treat them the way you always treated them. And don't try to talk up or down or sideways to any of us.
Now, you mentioned that when you were a educator in the school, the trade school that was there, that you looked at it probably a little different. How have your looking at the handicap society changed since you actually became handicapped yourself?
I have a great deal more empathy for people who are in this position. I know how they feel. I know the challenges of getting around. I know the challenges of just being alive, far more than anyone else does who's not in that situation. So I'm starting to get active in the Canadian Paraplegic Association and doing some work with them. And I just feel I can be a lot more use to that particular segment of society than I ever could, because now I'm a part of that and I know what it feels to be a part of it.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you can't get out now and get a few rabbits on your own, but how are some of the other things that have changed in your life now that you're in a wheelchair?
Can't shoot moose either. Unless, actually, I was thinking about getting a gun mounted on the back of my pickup, like that camera is mounted on that tripod, and figure if I get a chair up in the back of the truck and get behind that gun and was lucky enough to get a moose on the road, then I might be able to shoot one. That may be far out. I don't know, maybe not. They say nothing is impossible. And you have to believe that if you're in this situation. And what was the question you asked me?
How have other things that have changed?
Ah, yes. Other things that have changed in my life. I don't just decide I'm going to run down the road to the post office or to the grocery store. It takes a while to get clothes on me because it's difficult to get coats on, and especially outdoor clothes. I have to go out and get the van heated up. Then I have to go aboard a lift that lifts me up and into the van, and then get tied down, the chair tied down, and then out of the van again. So that going down the road takes on all the trappings of a major excursion. Whereas formerly, run out, jump in the car, run down the road, be back again in 20 minutes with a loaf of bread. I can't do that anymore. But that's fine. I accept that. If I can't do it that way, I'll do it the other way. And that's the attitude you have to take toward everything. Okay, I can't do that way. I'll do it another way. If I can't get out in my boat, like I always did, from Little Wharf down in St. Patrick's, where I used to have her moored, I'll find another way to get aboard that boat sometime soon. If I can't get down to my cabin because of the road, I'll find a way to get down there some other way, even if I have to build another road. But you always look at everything as, I couldn't do that before, or I could do that before, but now I have to do that differently. How do I go about doing it? Like the story in the Bible about the fellows who brought the sick man to Jesus when he was healing, and he couldn't get in through the door. What do? They didn't give up. They went up on the roof, dug a hole, and let him down through. And if I can't go in through a door, I go down through a roof.
So I guess your boat actually is something that you're looking forward to possibly getting out into the summer?
I don't know about this summer because there are things that have to be done that may not be accomplished by that time. I know friends who do get out in their boats, not here in Newfoundland, but in Ontario, and they have lifts set on the end of the wharf, and they get lifted up same way as I do to my van. You swung it over the boat and then lowered down, and away you go, you know. I know people who have even less movement of their hands and arms than I do, who sail boats competitively by themselves. And you say, how in the world they do it? Well, they do it, you know. So the only difference is you don't have as much drift ice at Lake Ontario as you do down here. And rarely an iceberg. I never saw one while I was up there.
But I guess you've seen them here.
Well, scattered one, yeah.
Now, Ed, thanks for letting us come in, and hopefully we haven't imposed on you too much. And hopefully in the future we might get another visit from when we get that new book on the go.
Okay, be glad to talk to you anytime, and thank you.
Thanks again.